Houston is all about sports, and sports is big business. Now, for this Sports Extra Extra, let's bring in Chandler France from the Houston Business Journal. Chandler, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Obviously, one of the most recent stories that you've been reporting on is the Harris County Sports and Convention Corporation selecting firms for the NRG Park master planning process. What are the major implications moving forward based on this step that the Harris County Sports and Convention Corporation has done?
Sure. Yeah, this is essentially the next step of the process here. Last year, they did a bunch of studies that essentially visualized concepts of what the future of NRG Park could look like. There's a lot of pie in the sky stuff, nothing really real to that. And so this step is kind of analyzing what was done last year and seeing, okay, what is feasible, what is going to cost, what is it going to look like?
How does that impact the normal average sports fan here in Houston?
Well, you might see what the next iteration of NRG Park is going to look like. That will likely include the future of the Astrodome, which I know is a hot button topic here in Houston. And so it probably won't affect Houston fans anytime soon. It's still really early in the process in terms of negotiating leases, in terms of developing the master plan. So I don't anticipate any changes anytime soon, but at least we're getting the ball moving.
The ball moving is very important. Determining the appropriate funding options for maintenance and renovations, is that really, I mean, it's always about money. Is that the major question mark as this analysis moves forward? Who's going to pay for all this?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a two-part problem here because you need to decide what you're going to pay for before you decide how you're going to pay for it. But they interrelate a lot because if you don't have the money to pay for the things that you want, you can't do the things that you want. And so you kind of have this tricky balance of they don't know what they are going to pay for, but they need to be able to know what they can pay for in order to find the funding sources to do that.
How do we think this will ultimately look? Or is that the billion-dollar question that even they don't know, speaking of the Sports and Convention Corporation?
That is the billion-dollar question. It seems like the way that things are trending right now is a major renovation of NRG Stadium, a major renovation of NRG Center. Astrodome is still to be determined, and then NRG Arena, it seems like they're going to build a brand new one. And as of right now, that appears to be at the same NRG Park site.
What are some of the funding options for this new, improved, revitalized NRG Park when it happens? Where could some of that money come from?
Yeah, it's going to require quite a few different sources. There's no one source. There's no one magic bullet that's going to pay for it all. Obviously, the Houston Texans and the Houston Rodeo will need to contribute a significant amount of money. And that's because the public side of things, there simply isn't the money there to support anything, a multi-billion-dollar project like what may be needed. And so on the public side, you've got the city of Houston, you've got Harris County, of course. Their funds are pretty strapped. You've got the Harris County Houston Sports Authority, which funded and financed the stadium in the first place. They're also cash strapped. They have a lot of debt. The only way for them to increase their bonding capacity would be for them to increase the amount of hotel occupancy taxes and rental car taxes that they receive. And the only way they can do that is by a measure in the state legislature, which we're obviously coming to the end of this session. There's nothing like that was passed. So the soonest it would happen would be 2027. So there's a lot of different moving parts there, but at least on the public side, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to find out what's going to work.
And basically, when you look at the comments on anything regarding NRG, the Texans, a new facility, whether it's football games or football training, from what I see is that the public does not want to pay for this. The fans, what's wrong with the facility you have? We know that it's old by current NFL standards and most NFL standards, but do you get the sense that really the people out there, the people that pay for the seats and the parking and everything else, they don't want to pay for something like this?
That's certainly the sense I get, is that the public is not willing to fund this, even at maybe a smaller amount. There are ways to get around it. Harris County, they paid for the new video boards that are going to go in. Well, not necessarily new. They're replacing the old ones. It's a like-for-like replacement. And they were able to do that with bonding capacity that didn't fall back on the taxpayers. And if there was a raise in the hotel occupancy tax, technically that doesn't fall, or at least maybe the argument is that it doesn't fall.
On the local constituents.
Yes, it's visitors, it's people coming in, it's people who are coming into the events to enjoy the things at NRG Center or NRG Stadium and NRG Center for that matter. So there are ways around it, but if the city of Houston, if Harris County said something like, we want $500 million in public bonds with new taxes, I'm not sure that would go over well.
Let's move on to something else. Houston is one of the top 10 U.S. sports business cities for soccer, a new report shows. And of course, that report is from your sister publication, Sports Business Journal. The ranking considers the markets with the strongest soccer economies by measuring factors such as professional franchises, major events, and venue development. I don't think this comes as a surprise to anybody, given the amount of events, soccer events, which come here, Gold Cup, CONCACAF, you name it, it's usually played here. But it certainly is a nice feather in the cap, and I think it really validates Houston's stance when it comes to being a soccer city in the United States.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, anybody you talk to in the soccer world here will tell you that Houston is a soccer city. I don't think a lot of people around the city maybe realize that, but it is true. Like you mentioned, we host a lot of events. I believe it's about 60 or more than 60 over the last decade, including the Gold Cup, obviously the upcoming World Cup. We hosted the Copa America tournament last year and in 2016. And we've got two professional soccer teams, one women's, one men, and we're the only city in Texas that has both the women's and the men's side. And so there's a lot of good things going for Houston on the soccer side, and it's nice to be recognized for that.
And it's not just the fact that we have two soccer teams and we have a stadium. A lot of it has to do with the rankings, is that basically you have a venue that has been modified in some ways. It has been improved. And Ted Siegel, who owns the Dynamo and Dash, he has poured in money to improve the seating and a club, the East Club, I believe it's called. And also you look at some of the tech around Houston, and that is certainly people. Yes, we're known for oil and gas, but when you look at the soccer-specific tech that Houston has, that's also surprising, I imagine, to some people as well.
Yeah, Houston's got a great stadium. You may not think about it because it's an outdoor stadium, but Ted Siegel has poured millions of dollars into that stadium. There's a lot of great things going for it, and there's a lot of decarbonization efforts going on there, too, with Shell. They're putting solar panels, they're doing various efforts to reduce their carbon footprint by 50% by 2026.
And something that fans do see is the name on that stadium. And we know how a lot of Houston fans feel about the new name Daikin Park. It is what it is. Daikin, they showed up, paid the money, and now you have Daikin Park.
Mm-hmm.
It was just released the other day by the university that Rice University will now be exploring naming rights for Rice Stadium. I don't want to say it's an iconic building, but it's certainly a very historic building, having hosted a Super Bowl and being more than 75 years old. I imagine a lot of people in the industry would say, what took you so long? Because really, it was only a matter of time before Rice went this route, given the ever-changing landscape of college sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're seeking major renovations there as well. Potentially a new stadium is what the athletics director, Tom McClellan, told me last year. And to do that, you need money. And naming rights is one of the easiest. It's one of the best ways in order to get that funding. And so, yeah, like you said, it's about time. It's their first naming rights deal. It will be their first naming rights deal ever in the more than 75-year history, like you said. And so it'll be interesting to see how it works out.
When you spoke to Tommy, was he aware of how fans may react to the name of Rice Stadium being changed?
I'm not sure if he was aware or not aware. I'm not sure if that's much of a consideration maybe at this point. I think it's more about making sure they have the funding in order to compete at the highest level, given the changing nature of college athletics right now.
And were we surprised that Toyota re-upped with Toyota Center and the Rockets? Of course, they were redoing the roof, and now, because they were redoing the roof, the Toyota Center logo was gone. Are you surprised by the fact that they re-upped with Toyota?
I'm not surprised at all, no. Tillman Fertitta told me late last year that he expected a long-term deal to be signed, For what I've been told, it's a 5-year deal, which isn't exactly a long-term deal, but it is a deal. The deal ended, the initial 20-year deal ended in 2023. What I've been told is they've been operating on 1-year kind of extensions since then. And so this is long-term in terms of the 1-year extensions that they've been working off of. But it's still just a 5-year deal.
And going back to Rice, realistically, what kind of numbers could the university expect for a stadium naming rights deal, given that it's not in the Power Four conferences, and one would argue it's certainly not a powerhouse in sports in its own city?
Sure. Yeah, I think looking at the University of North Texas deal is a really good benchmark for that. They signed a new deal in 2023 with a local, and I believe that was a 15-year deal valued about $1.43 million annually. They are also in the American Athletic Conference with Rice. They also joined in 2023. And so I think that's a good benchmark of where in the ballpark we might end up with Rice.
And ahead, it is the Business of Sports panel hosted by the Houston Business Journal. Tickets are still available.
Yep.
What can people expect when they go and see this panel in terms of what's going to be discussed and who's going to be there?
Yeah. This year's theme is about what Houston needs to do to continue to be a viable sports business city, specifically in terms of bringing in major events like the World Cup, like Super Bowls. What do we need to do to bring the Super Bowl back? What do we need to do to keep getting events like the World Cup? And it's going to be the who's who of the sports industry, essentially. Ryan Walsh, the CEO of the Sports Authority, will be moderating it. And then Mike Toman, the president of the Texans, Gretchen Shear, the president of business operations for the Rockets, Jessica O'Neill from the Dynamo and the Dash, Chris Bowman from the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and then and Giles Kibbe from the Houston Astros. And so we've got representatives from just about every single sports organization that is relevant to this conversation. So I think it's going to be a great time.
What do you think is the biggest issue facing all of these teams collectively? Because I would say, in my opinion, it's probably the age of the facilities. And if you're not getting better, you're getting left behind in sports. I would say it's the age of these facilities and making sure that they remain up to date. What would you say is the biggest issue facing all of these?
I think it's also infrastructure. Definitely the stadiums are getting old. They need upgrades. At least for the Astros and the Rockets, they have spent a lot of money into upgrading their venues, but they need a lot more because of the age, like you mentioned. It's also infrastructure outside of the stadium. I know there was a study 2 years ago for the best from Sports Business Journal as well, for the best sports business cities in the U.S. Houston was number 29, 50. It seemed pretty low given how well we do in terms of hosting major events. One of the things that dinged us was traffic. It's hard to get around the city. There's plenty of hotel rooms all around the region, but if you're up in the Woodlands, maybe you like to hotel up there and you're trying to get to NRG for a game, that's quite a bit of a hike. And so not only is it the infrastructure at the stadiums, I think there needs to be more. I think there's more that needs to be done in terms of traffic and some of the other ancillary things as well.
I don't even know what they could do, though, to improve, unless they ask more people to leave the area. I can't imagine what you could do because the footprints that those places have pretty established in terms of infrastructure. I don't know what could be done unless the only thing that I think of initially is some sort of improvement in public transportation, but we have it, and I don't even think that that's fully utilized by a lot of our sports fans here.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly speaks to a much broader question about public transportation, about traffic, about just transportation in general in Houston. That affects everything, not just the sports industry here. And so public transportation, definitely. I'm a Southern California native. I went to school in Los Angeles. They don't have the best public transportation, but I do say it's a little bit better here than in Houston. Or it's better. Sorry, let me restart that. I will say it's a little bit better in Los Angeles than it is in Houston. I have personally never used public transit here in Houston. I would love to, but I think there definitely needs to be some more investment there for it to be viable and as a way to mitigate some of the traffic issues.
Although leaving Dodger Stadium is not easy.
It is not.
Right? Like that's one thing I know, that leaving Dodger Stadium ain't easy.
I'm not saying it's perfect in LA. It's just slightly better than in Houston. Obviously, LA has a bunch of its own traffic problems as well.
He is Chandler France from the Houston Business Journal. Thanks for being with us here for this Sports Extra Extra.
Thank you for having me, Jason. I really appreciate it.